Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library. And today we're going to take a little time with Google Sheets and a really small, it's really a table, not so much a spreadsheet, but we're going to learn how to navigate in Google Sheets so you can get to the cells and the cell ranges that you need to work on to make that best spreadsheet possible. Let's start by looking at the information that we are going to use today. And while it isn't really a spreadsheet, it's more of a table or a list, it gives us some filled in fields so we can practice what we're learning. So this is for a craft club, and it looks like it meets the first Monday of every month. And so they're getting ready for a new year. And so in column A, we have a list of all of the months. And then in column B, we have a list of the people who are opening their homes to this club so they can all work on their different projects. And then in the third column, we have those who are bringing in the refreshments, which of course that's really important if you're going to meet for several hours. So a rather simple table, but it should meet our needs for learning how to navigate in Google Sheets. One of the most obvious ways to move around in Google Sheets is to use your mouse. So if the cell is visible, you can simply click in that cell, as I've done, and so I've now selected D5, or I can see over here, let's see, G13, and I simply click and I select that cell. Another thing that I can do if I have a mouse that has a wheel between the left and right buttons is that I can use that wheel to go down or to go up. On the right hand side we have scroll bar, and actually it's a little button here on the vertical bar that lets me click and drag down, or I can drag up. Now at the bottom of that bar I have an arrow that points down and an arrow that points up. So with the down arrow I can click and go one row at a time, or with the up arrow I can click and go up one row at a time. Now just below and to the left of that vertical bar we have a horizontal bar. So we can also move to the right one column at a time, or move to the left one column at a time. If you have used Sheets in the past and even tried to type in it, then you're probably already aware that if you press enter, and for example here, because I've already typed, I'm going to click once and I get an insertion point so that if I want to edit that cell I can, and then I press enter a second time and it goes down to the cell below. Well, as I keep pressing enter to get into the cell and then press enter again to go down and enter that particular cell, save it, then you can see that enter will always move down the column. What you may not be aware of is that the shift key on your keyboard, and you can see that the shift key is here on the left hand side, and this is really a picture of my laptop, so you can even see that I use the space bar quite a bit. But here is the enter key. If you use shift and enter together, the shift key reverses what the enter key does. So let me hold down shift and now press enter, and again I'm going to need to press enter twice, and it moves up instead of down the column. You may also decide that you want to move from left to right occasionally, and one of the ways you can do that is to use the tab key, and the tab key on your keyboard is on the left hand side toward the top. Well, let's start with A6 here where we have January, and then I can tab to B6 and tab, and I get to C6. Now just like we learned with enter, if you use shift with tab, you can also reverse direction here too. So I'll hold down the shift key and then press tab to go to the left. The arrow keys are perhaps an obvious choice, but they are certainly a very popular choice to use to move around in a spreadsheet. You can find them on your keyboard in slightly different places. For example, my 4 keys are below the Enter key, but they might also be found between the Enter key and the alphabetic characters and the numeric keypad. Still kind of low on your keyboard though. To use the arrow keys, you select a starting point, and I'm starting in A6, and then as I use the down arrow, the active cell moves down 1 row each time I press the key. If I press the right arrow, it moves 1 column to the right each time I press the key. To go up, I can use the up arrow key, and again, that moves up 1 row each time. Or if I use the left arrow key, it moves to the left 1 column at a time. One pair of keys on the keyboard that you may not be familiar with are page up and page down. Now, as I look at my keyboard, I can find those keys above the numeric keypad, but they are spelled a little differently. Page is abbreviated to PG, down is abbreviated to DN. So when you're looking for page up, page down, they may be spelled out, or those words may be spelled a little oddly. You may find those keys between the numeric keys and the alphabetic keys, or you may find them above the numeric keypad as my laptop shows. When you use page up and page down, they are directly related to the resolution of your monitor. So I have a fairly large resolution today, so I can see at the moment about 16 rows. Now this is approximate, and as we go through, this may be off 1 or 2 rows, but not much more than that. The idea is that you can see just these 16 rows, and then when we go page down, we'll see another 16 rows. You may be able to see over 20 or 30 rows because that is your screen resolution, but for me today, we're going to see 15 or 16 rows each time I press one of these keys. So let me press page down, and remember that we can see 16 here at the bottom, but that may not be the entire 16th row. Let's see. So I press page down, and now I see 16 again, and it goes through 32, maybe 32 and a half. So it's been about 16 rows here, and then when I press page down again, it takes me to row 50-ish. If I go back up with page up, again, here I am at 33, it goes to 16, and back to 1. So this is a really nice way to see just one screen at a time. It slows you down as opposed to using the scroll bar, but it lets you kind of hone in on certain details as you're looking at your particular spreadsheet. So be sure to use page up and page down. There is another pair of keys that you may decide you want to use from time to time, and that is home and then end. Now on my keyboard on my laptop, home and end are side by side above the 10 key pad. You may also find them, depending on your keyboard, between the alphabetic characters and that numeric keypad. So just watch for home and end. One might even be above the other on the keyboard, just depending. Now with home, I have clicked in C6. If I press home, it takes me to A6. So always when you press home, it takes you to the beginning of that row. Now the end key takes you to the end of the row, and in this case it's taken us to Z6. We have a really small spreadsheet, so using end doesn't really help because now I'm way out past where I even have any data. So You may not use end as much as you use home, but again, to get back to the beginning, to find the information you need to refer to, if you press home, you always end up at the first cell of that row. You can use the control key in combination with either home or end. And the control key is down here to the left of the space bar. And you just hold it down as you press home or end and let them both up then at the same time. Well, let me just sort of click in a blank cell. So when I use control home, it takes me to the very beginning of the sheet, and not even the spreadsheet, but the actual sheet in, say, A1. Some people will even tell you that as a rule it will always take you to A1, but there's some exceptions to that rule. But what we can say is it will definitely take you to the top left of the sheet. Now Control End, on the other hand, when I press it, takes us down to Z1000. So it is the very last cell in this sheet, and it's way beyond where I have any information. If you have a really large spreadsheet, this might be something you want to use, but certainly Control Home to get back to that beginning reference. Whether you have a small spreadsheet or a large one or just a lot of different kinds of things on your worksheet, Control Home will always take you back to the beginning and is a really nice way to end your session as well, so that you're always at the beginning when you open a spreadsheet the next time. You may also decide that you would like to use the Control key in combination with the arrow keys, and it may very well be that this is your best bet all around. So here I am at A1, where I've selected a cell, hold down Control, and then press the down arrow key. And note how it just skipped row 2, because row 2 doesn't have a cell with anything in it, but definitely A3, and some other cells in row 3 do have something in them. When I press the down arrow again, keeping in mind that I've got Control down as well, it takes me to A5, skipping A4, because again A4 doesn't have anything in it. When I keep my Control down and press the down arrow one more time, I get to the last cell in the last row of this spreadsheet in column A that has anything in it, and that is A17. Now from here on down there is nothing, but Sheets is going to try to find something. So I have Control, press down arrow, and it takes me all the way to A1000 and doesn't ever find another cell with contents. We can reverse that process by holding down Control and then pressing the up arrow, where it takes me to A17. Press the up arrow again, keeping Control key down, and it takes me to the top cell within my spreadsheet, which is A5. When I press the up arrow again, we skip row 4 because there's nothing in it. Press the up arrow again, it takes me back to A1. So with the Control and arrow keys, it always is going to try to skip over blank rows or columns and instead look for cells that have something in them. Now I know that I don't have anything out to the right, so when I hold down Control and use the right arrow key, it takes me to the very end of that sheet, which is in this case Z1, because there was nothing in any of the other cells. If I use the Control key and the left arrow, it takes me back to the beginning. Let's look at the spreadsheet then, which does have information in it, and let's see how this might work. So hold down the Control key, press the down arrow, and it takes me to the end of that column within the spreadsheet, but no farther. Keeping Control down, I can go to the right, and it takes me to the far right cell of that spreadsheet, but no farther to the right. If I hold Control and use the up arrow, it takes me to the top of that spreadsheet, but no farther, because there's a blank row above it. And again, if I hold down the control and use the left arrow, it takes me back as far as it can go left where there is still something in that spreadsheet. So you can use Control plus the arrow keys to define the area of your spreadsheet and get to the end of the row or the end of the column within your spreadsheet and not worry about going so far out that then you have to backtrack to get where you want to work. So Control plus the arrow keys may be a really nice option for you and your spreadsheets. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning, where you will find great online resources that include Universal Class, lynda.com, and Learning Express Library. Tune in each week as we introduce new videos on a variety of tech topics. You can find us at 1 o'clock on Wednesday and Friday and 2 o'clock on Tuesday. Be sure to find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, or if you prefer, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at MCPLMO, where you can find our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.